I moved to this quiet little town last New Year's Eve. I thought it would be a fresh start after my breakup. Being a freelance graphic designer, I needed a peaceful place to focus. I found a nice house with that classic 90s look, charming yet a bit spooky. I planned to spend the evening alone. I set up my favorite snacks and started a classic movie. It felt cozy, and I thought the night would be perfect. But just before midnight, I heard a soft tapping at my window. Maybe it was just the wind. I pushed the thought aside and tried to ignore it. The next day, I stepped out to check my mail. On my doorstep, I saw a small note. It said, "The party's just beginning." My heart raced. Who had left this? I looked around, but the street was empty. I felt uneasy. Was this a prank? I shook off the chills and walked back inside. That night, I noticed shadows moving in my yard. I stared out the window, squinting to see better. Nothing was there, just the trees swaying. I felt a mix of fear and curiosity. I told myself it was my imagination. Still, I locked the door, just to be safe. As I settled back on the couch, I heard laughter, distant and echoing. It sent a wave of panic through me. I glanced around the room. I was alone. My heart raced. What was happening? The laughter echoed again. It felt wrong, like something was forcing its way into my thoughts. Then I remembered the note. I felt a chill creeping in. I hugged myself tight. I looked out the window again. There were figures starting in the darkness outside. Just shadows, I told myself, nothing more. But then I caught sight of someone in my yard. They stood under the dim streetlight. It was a person, just standing there. My breath caught in my throat. Who were they? Why were they there? Before I could think, they turned and walked away. Just before midnight, I heard a knock on my door. My heart was pounding. I froze. I stood still, feeling the cold sweat on my forehead. I picked up my phone, ready to call someone, anyone, but then I stopped. I walked quietly to the door and peeked through the peephole. Nothing but darkness stared back at me. I considered opening the door, but then a whisper came from outside. "The fun has just begun." My heart dropped. I was alone, staring at my closed door. I felt my knees shake. I stepped back, gripping the edge of my couch. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't find my voice. The door rattled slightly. I didn't know what to do. I waited in silence, hoping to hear something, anything more. But all I could hear was the sound of my own heart pounding in my chest. I felt trapped, and the fear wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. All I could do was wait. I couldn't take it any longer. My heart was pounding and my mind was racing. I needed to know what was outside. I took a deep breath and grabbed a kitchen knife from the block. It felt silly, but it made me feel a little safer.
I shuffled quietly to the door and pressed my ear against it. Silence. With shaky hands, I unlocked the door and cracked it open just a fraction. The street was still. I peered into the darkness, but the only sound was the rustling leaves. Maybe I had imagined the whole thing. Was I just overreacting? I stepped outside, heart pounding, and shivered in the cool air. Then I saw it. A flash of movement near the edge of my yard. My breath hitched as I squinted into the shadowy figures of the trees. What I thought had been a trick of the light now took shape. It was a small object lying in the grass, barely visible in the dim glow. My curiosity overpowered my fear. I took a cautious step forward. The object was a toy, a party blower. It looked old and worn, like it had been left over from a forgotten celebration. I picked it up, turning it over in my hands. There was a scrawled message on it. "Catch me if you can." My stomach dropped. The laughter I had heard earlier echoed back in my mind. The night felt heavier, as if the darkness itself was holding its breath. Just then, I heard a faint giggle again, closer this time. My heart raced as I spun around, scanning my yard. There, just beyond the hedge, I saw a flash of movement, a small figure gliding between the trees. Was it a child? I felt a mix of dread and worry. Who would be out here at this hour? "Hello?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" Nothing, just the sound of the wind. I took another step forward, and in the brief glow from a street light, I saw the figure again, darting away. It was too fast. Panic coursed through me, and the urge to retreat swept over me. I turned to go back inside, but my foot caught on an unseen branch, sending me stumbling. As I fell, the blade I clutched in my hand slipped from my grasp and clattered to the ground. I scrambled to my feet, breathless and flustered. I glanced back at the place where I'd seen the figure, but it was gone. The shadow swallowed everything whole. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, startling me. I fished it out, praying it was a random message or a call from a friend to distract me. But when I checked, I found a message from an unknown number. "Are you ready for the real party?" That sent a chill down my spine. Panic erupted within me. I rushed back inside, slamming the door and locking it tight. I leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. My hand trembled as I typed a quick response, but then a strong knock echoed from the door. "Let's play," a familiar voice chirped on the other side. I froze, the blood running cold in my veins. It was the voice from before, the one that whispered just outside the door. For a moment, I was paralyzed. Then instinct kicked in. I turned around, seeking safety from the voice that wanted to play a game I hadn't signed up for. I dashed across the living room, my heart thumping in my ears. I had to find somewhere to hide.
The shadows felt alive, creeping into the corners of the room. I slipped into the hallway and glanced around, desperate for an escape. The stairs stretched before me, ascending into darkness. "Let's play," the voice repeated, this time more insistent. I could almost hear the grin in the tone. I hurried up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, praying to put distance between me and whatever waited at the door. I reached my bedroom and shut the door behind me, pressing my back against it. I held my breath, hoping against hope that whoever or whatever was out there would give up. The knocking stopped, but the silence felt thick and suffocating. I fumbled for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and scanned the room. What should I do? My mind raced through options. Call someone? Hide? I needed to think. Then I remembered the party blower. I pulled it from my pocket, reliving the sensation of panic and dread as I read the message. "Catch me if you can." It felt like a taunt now. Placing it on my nightstand, I examined my surroundings for something I could use defensively. That's when I saw it. A sliver of movement past my window. I crept closer, heart in my throat. Peering out, I caught sight of the figure again, this time standing near the edge of my yard. Even in the dim light, I could see it was small, too small to be an adult. A child. But wasn't it way too late for a kid to be out here? I leaned in for a closer look, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Suddenly the child turned and faced me, the streetlight revealing their face. My breath hitched. Their features were obscured by a dark mask, wide eyes glinting in the darkness. They raised a slender arm and waved. The movement felt innocent yet sinister all at once. I stumbled back, instinctively retreating. "What do you want?" I whispered, barely able to keep my voice steady. A whisper floated through the air, barely audible yet somehow piercing. "Join us." A chill swept over me as I thought back to the party blower and the message. Something far worse than I could have imagined was unfolding. I hurriedly backed away from the window and shut the curtain, plunging myself into darkness. My options felt limited. I couldn't stay cooped up here. Anxiety twisted in my gut. I needed to get out to figure out what was happening. Almost on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was another text from the unknown number. "Don't be scared. The fun is just beginning." A sudden noise outside made me freeze, the sound of scraping against the door. My heart raced as I pressed my ear against the cool wood, listening intently. It felt like the entire house was holding its breath. Then everything went dark. The power flickered out, plunging me into an oppressive silence. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, teetering into the unknown. "Come on, let's have some fun," the voice sang from somewhere outside my door, and time stood still. I knew I had to face whatever was coming next. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to move away from the door. Standing still wouldn't keep me safe. I needed a plan. My mind raced as I looked around the pitch-black room. The sound outside continued, a dragging, scraping noise. It made my skin crawl. Whatever was out there was trying to get in. I took a few hesitant steps into the room, keeping the flashlight aimed towards the floor. I could escape through the window, but it was a risky choice, too many unknowns. And if there really was a child out there, who would I be leaving behind? I looked toward my closet, unsure if I should hide or confront the situation head-on. The scraping stopped suddenly. Silence descended like a heavy blanket, and dread curled in my stomach. "What are you doing?" I muttered to myself, trying to gather the courage to do something, anything. That's when there was a loud thud against my bedroom door. I jumped, the light flickering in my hands. My heart pounded as I envisioned it splintering under the pressure. I edged closer to the door, the flashlight beam shaking, and pressed my ear against the door again. "Let's play a game," the voice chimed, echoing with a mischievous tone. This time it sounded like it was right outside, as if the figure had moved closer. "Get a grip," I whispered harshly, shaking my head. This had to be a joke, a sick joke. But deep down, fear gnawed at me, insisting this was real. I had to take charge before whatever was tormenting me took the next step. In a burst of determination, I rushed over to my desk. I grabbed a pair of scissors, the only weapon I could find. It felt flimsy, but it was better than facing an unarmed intruder. Suddenly, the light buzzed back to life, bathing the room in a muted glow. I blinked in surprise. Maybe this was my chance. I rushed to the window, the fear still pulsating, but I had to know what waited outside. Peering through the curtain, my breath caught again. The child was still there, except now they were joined by two others, all masked, all staring straight at me. My heart hammered in my chest. They huddled together, whispering among themselves, their heads bobbing in animated chatter. The sight was eerily calm, too calm for the situation. Against my better judgment, I pushed the curtain aside for a better view. "What do you want?" I shouted, trying to sound authoritative even though my voice trembled. They paused and turned their masked faces toward me, as if considering their response. The tallest one stepped forward and pointed a finger at me, a silent command passing through the air. My grip tightened on the scissors. "Join us!" they all echoed in unison, their voices layered like a chant. I stumbled back, realizing that not only had I felt threatened, but now I understood. They wanted me to come out. I couldn't let fear dictate my next move. But what if I opened the door? My mind raced, caught between fight and flight.
Then a sharp knock broke the tension again, louder this time, rattling the door on its hinges. "Let's play." The voice seemed to deepen, resonating with an impossible glee. I had no idea what awaited me outside, but one thing was clear. I could no longer stay locked away. The thud against the door jolted me back to reality. My heart raced, and adrenaline coursed through my veins. I kept the scissors close, a pitiful weapon, but it was something. "What do I do?" I whispered desperately, timing my breaths to match the rhythm of my pounding heart. I took a step toward the door, the thrill of fear gripping me tighter. If I don't open it, will they come in anyway? I thought, glancing back toward the window. The masked figures were still there, peering in like dark shadows against the night. I felt trapped, both inside and outside. Then I heard it again, that distinctive scraping sound, but this time it was different. It was coming from underneath the door. I crouched low, heart hammering, flashlight aimed at the crack. The shadows danced around my room, but the sound was more pronounced now, like nails on wood, desperate. "Let's play," came the voice again, this time softer, almost pleading. "Don't you want to play?" I felt a shiver run down my spine. "No," I shouted, surprising myself. "Go away!" My voice cracked, but I said it again, louder. "Leave me alone!" The rattle of the door ceased, but the scraping persisted, as if the figure outside was trying to dig its way in. I pressed my palms against the door, feeling the coolness of the wood beneath my fingers. My breath quickened, and I glanced back toward the window. They were still watching, and now more figures had emerged from the darkness, their presence an echoing chorus of impending doom. Suddenly, the lights flickered again and dimmed out, casting me back into darkness. Panic surged. I swung my flashlight wildly, desperate for any sliver of illumination. I could hear murmurs outside, hot breaths whispering secrets I couldn't grasp. Then everything went dead silent. The scraping stopped, and for a moment, I almost dared to hope they had gone. I steadied my breathing and thought about my options. The window could still be an escape route, but the children had turned it into a stage for their twisted game. That's when I noticed it, a slight shimmer beneath my bed, a faint glow against the dark. Curiosity crept in, overshadowing my fear. I crouched low, the scissors clutched in my hand like a lifeline. Peering under the bed, my flashlight beam revealed something shiny, reflecting the light back at me. I reached for it, my heart thumping in my chest, and grasped the object. It was a small mirror, cracked but intact. As I turned it, I saw something in the reflection, a figure scuttling past, dark and quick. My breath hitched. They weren't just outside anymore. One had slipped inside.
I whipped around, ready to confront whatever had entered, but there was nothing there, just shadows and heavy silence. Then a soft giggle echoed from the corner of my room. My blood ran cold. Someone was hiding, playing a game without my consent. "Who's there?" I demanded, the tremor back in my voice. But there was no answer, only the creaking of the floorboards above me. My instincts screamed for me to run. I stood up, scanning every inch of my room, desperate for a sign, for anything to indicate where the figure had gone. In that eerie stillness, I sensed a presence ready to pounce. I took a step back toward the door, but it felt like I was forgetting something. The mirror slipped from my fingers, clattering against the floor, as my heart raced, trying to process what I had just seen. I had to hurry and make a choice. The sound of muffled laughter lingered like a ghost, taunting me from the shadows. Suddenly, before I could react, the door creaked open an inch. I froze, staring in disbelief as tight little hands pried it wider, accompanied by that same chilling voice. "Let's play." The moment the door creaked open, I felt the air shift. My heart raced again, pounding in my ears. I backed away instinctively, still clutching the scissors, my only source of courage. The little hands pulled the door wider, revealing a small face peeking through the crack. It was a child, eyes wide and glimmering in the dark. My stomach dropped. I had seen this face before, one of those shadows from outside. "Come on," the child chirped, voice sweet yet chilling. "Don't be scared, it's just a game." "No, I'm not playing." I pressed against the wall, feeling the rough texture dig into my back. "You need to leave." "Why not?" Another giggle, higher pitch now. "It's more fun with you here. We want you to join us." Where was the rest of the group? I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I risked a glance outside the door. The masked figures were still there, their faces obscured, but I could feel their eyes boring into me. They were watching, waiting for something, waiting for me. "Don't you want to have some fun?" The little girl's voice dropped to a whisper. I felt like a moth trapped in a spider's web. No matter how much I wanted to run, something held me there. "Fun?" I asked, disbelief choking me. "What do you mean?" "Playing hide and seek, but we found you first." She grinned, revealing small teeth that looked too sharp. "You can't hide from us. It's not allowed." I took a step back, remembering the voice behind me, the one in the shadows. I needed to get out. I needed to find a way to escape. Suddenly, the laughter erupted again, a chorus of children's voices echoing around me. It was as if they had multiplied, their unseen forms circling me in the darkness. My heart raced. "No, leave me alone," I shouted again, backing up until I felt the edge of my bed pressed against my legs.
The door stood slightly ajar, and I could see the outlines of those dark figures closing in. "We're all waiting for you, don't you see?" A voice from the darkness asked, thick with mockery. "You can't run from your own party." That's when I remembered the mirror. I scrambled forward, intending to grab it, the only thing that might show me more than just the shadows. I felt the cool glass beneath my fingers as I lifted it, hoping to see more than just my pale reflection. But as I angled it toward the door, a new figure appeared in the glass. It was another child, grinning wider than the others, a crooked smile that sent icy fingers down my spine. "You're not escaping, you know." His voice was chillingly calm. I dropped the mirror, panic gripping me. I had to think fast. "What do you want?" I yelled, desperation edging my tone. "Just come play with us," the girl said sweetly, her voice deceptively innocent. "We can't have fun without you." And then, with a sudden rush of movement, the door swung wide open, and the figures rushed in, their laughter filling the room like a thick fog. I stumbled back, fear coursing through me. They poured toward me like water through a crack in a dam. I needed to make a choice now, fight or flee. As they closed in, I turned to the only possible escape left, the window. Would I be quick enough? I leaped toward it, but the shadows followed, and I could hear that eerie whisper again, louder than ever, tinged with excitement. "You can't hide from us." I had to find out if the world outside was a safety net, or just another game. I crashed through the window, grass scratching my arms as I tumbled into the dark yard. The cool night air hit me like a slap, but I didn't stop to catch my breath. I ran. I could hear the cacophony of laughter behind me, the sound echoing like a taunt. The moon illuminated the path ahead, casting long shadows that twisted and flickered. I glanced back, expecting to see the children right on my heels, but the figures only stood at the edge of the window, peering out with their haunting expressions. I turned and sprinted toward the fence at the end of the yard, every muscle in my body screaming to push harder. But then I stopped. I heard something, a faint chime. It was the sound of bells, ringing from somewhere nearby. My heart slowed for just a moment, curiosity cutting through the panic. I looked toward the sound, trying to focus through the chaos in my mind. As I moved closer to the source, I spotted a peculiar sight. There, at the old oak tree, stood a small table draped in white cloth. It was adorned with mismatched plates and glasses, all sparkling under the moonlight. But that wasn't the strangest part. There were also tiny party hats, balloons swaying in the breeze, and an old clock ticking loudly in the center, its hands moving backwards. "Happy New Year," a child's voice rang out, echoing from deeper in the shadows. I blinked, forcing myself to keep calm. "Who's there?"
I called out, stepping closer. "What do you want?" A figure emerged from the shadows. It was another child, but this one wore no mask. Her eyes were wide and excited, as if she had just seen a marvel. "It's time to celebrate. We're having a party." She gestured at the table, a huge grin stretching across her face. But something about her smile made me uneasy. "No more games," I said, my voice firm despite my racing heart. "I don't want to play." "Play? But it's not just a game. It's the best time of the year." She laughed as if I'd told a joke. "We can have cake and dance. Don't you want to?" In that moment, I noticed the others creeping out from behind the tree, their eyes glinting in the dark like white-hot stars. A chill ran down my spine. How could they all be here? Why were they all inviting me?
It felt wrong, like some twisted nightmare. "Just come join us," she continued, her voice almost sing-song. "We need one more for the countdown." I felt a wave of panic surge through me. The shadows flanking the girl looked menacing, and I backed away slowly. "I don't belong here," I shouted, turning again to run. But before I could take a step, the clock chimed loudly, and I felt a strange pull, as if the ground beneath me had shifted. The joy in the child's eyes darkened, transforming into something animalistic. "You can't leave now," she yelled, her smile stretching impossibly wide. I turned to run, but it felt like the earth itself was against me. My feet moved like molasses, each step heavier than the last. The laughter grew louder behind me, like an encroaching storm. Then everything went dark. I fell, no longer able to see. In that moment of darkness, it felt like the night itself was consuming me. I had to fight against it. I had to get out of this game. But as I strained against the shadows, I heard them whispering around me, taunting me with a familiar phrase. "You can't hide from us." What had I gotten into? And was there a way out before they closed in entirely? I found myself lying on the ground, the cold earth pressing against my cheek. Slowly, I pushed myself up, blinking to clear the darkness from my vision. The familiar sound of bells faded into a distant murmur, replaced now by an unsettling silence. I knew I had to move, had to escape whatever this was. I climbed to my feet, shaking off the dampness. The yard, once three-dimensional, now felt flat and distorted. The laughter was gone, but the memory of it echoed in my mind, resonating with a kind of perverse joy that chilled me to the bone. I looked around, desperately seeking something, anything, that would guide me away from this nightmare. In the corner of my eye, I caught a flicker of movement. I turned to see the large oak tree looming above me, its gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Something glimmered on the ground beneath it, flickering erratically. A candle.
I approached cautiously, the wax drooping and uneven, its flames sputtering as if fighting against some unseen wind. "Is someone there?" I whispered, my voice betraying my fear. The shadows twisted and danced around me, but there was no reply. I bent down to get a better look at the candle when I noticed a small envelope tucked beneath it. My heart raced as I pulled it free. Inside was a piece of paper, scrawled with childish handwriting that sent shivers down my spine. "First is the past, second is the present, and the last is your test." I twisted the paper in my hands, uncertainty swirling in my mind. What test? And why were these children tormenting me? Panic gripped me once again as I felt the unmistakable pressure of time pressing down on me. The moon hung overhead, but it felt more like a spotlight, glaring down in judgment. Just then, the clock I had seen earlier chimed again, the sound echoing through the yard and piercing the silence. Each chime sent a tremor through the ground, reminding me of the countdown, and my heart sank. I had to get out of here, and fast. As I turned to leave, I spotted movement in the shadows once more. A figure emerged, and I froze. It was the girl from before, her eyes almost glowing in the dark. The others appeared beside her, faces twisted in anticipation. The party hats fell askew on their heads, and the balloons floated behind them like ghosts of forgotten celebrations. "Ready for the countdown?" she asked, her tone dripping with excitement. "No," I shouted, instinctively backing away. "This isn't a game. I won't let you trap me." Her smile faltered just for a moment. "You need to come back. You can't leave until you finish." Her voice shifted, the sing-song turning sinister. "The test must be passed." With every ounce of will, I spun on my heel and ran, but the yard felt alive, the ground buckling beneath my feet and the shadows stretching to pull me back. The figures followed, laughter rising and falling like a tide around me. Breathless, I made it to the fence and launched myself over it, landing hard on the other side. But my moment of relief was short-lived. I stumbled forward, heart racing, only to realize the street stretched out endlessly in front of me. I was trapped in a loop, the shadows shifting, the children's laughter still weaving in and out. "I need to find the way out," I murmured to myself, determination bubbling to the surface. Then, from the distance, I saw a flash of light, a weak, flickering glow. That's when I saw it, a door that hadn't been there before. But as I drew closer, my heart dropped. The door was laced with familiar symbols, the kind I had once thought were imaginary. They looked almost like the decorations on the party table, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was behind that door was waiting for me, waiting to complete the countdown. I approached the door, every instinct screaming at me to turn back. The symbols seemed to writhe on the surface, mocking me with their familiarity. I reached out a trembling hand, fingers brushing against the cool wood. A shiver ran through me. This door felt alive somehow, as if it held secrets just beyond my reach. With a deep breath, I pushed it open. The hinges creaked, and the door swung wide, revealing a dimly lit room. It looked like a party room, but everything was out of place. Streamers hung sagging from the ceiling, and confetti lay scattered over an old, warped table. In the center of the room was a clock, its hands frozen at 12, as if time itself had given up. My heart raced as I stepped inside, nicking my foot on a broken party hat. I hissed in pain, barely registering the blood trickling down. The laughter faded, replaced by silence that pressed down, heavy and suffocating. In the corner, I noticed a small cake, the frosting cracked and fading. But that wasn't what caught my attention. On top of the cake sat 3 candles, their flames low and flickering. I recognized that they were the same candles I had seen in the yard. A sinking feeling filled my chest. I might know the significance of this place, but I wasn't ready for it. "Why do you keep coming back?" A voice cut through the stillness. I spun around, heart pounding. To my shock, it was the girl again, her face eerily calm, though the flicker of something darker danced in her eyes. The others followed closely behind her, their gazes fixed on me. "What do you mean?" I asked, forcing the words out. "I've never been here before." She stepped closer, a surprising maturity washing over her features. "You have to remember. You left before. You shouldn't have." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Completing the test is the only way to stay safe." "Stay safe?" I echoed. "What do you mean?" My voice cracked. "Every year the countdown happens," she replied, her tone now icy. "You can't escape that. The past has a way of bringing you back, and you need to choose. Be part of the celebration, or face the consequences." As soon as she said it, a wave of dread washed over me. "What consequences?" I stammered. The girl simply smiled, full of a predatory glee I couldn't comprehend. "You'll find out soon enough. It's time." Without warning, the clock began to tick again, but there were no numbers moving, just a slow, steady sound that filled the room. Panic surged, and I took a step back, but the door behind me slammed shut. I was trapped. The candle flames danced higher as they hissed, the smoke curling toward the ceiling. Everything felt surreal. I felt hot and cold at the same time, caught between fear and confusion. The laughter returned, this time echoing from the shadows. "Join us," they chanted, "or be left behind." As the shadows pressed closer, I could sense a presence forming, an entity born from my worst memories. "No," I shouted, desperate to fight the bull. I needed to find a way out of this, to break this cycle.
But before I could think of a plan, the clock struck 1, the sound reverberating through me, shaking the very foundations of reality. And suddenly, everything went dark. What was happening? Where had they gone? The dread of the unknown loomed heavier, pressing in on me as I grappled with a new, disorienting sight. A faint glow grew in the darkness. It was shrouded in mist, and I realized, whatever it was about to take me somewhere new. The glow expanded, illuminating a path through the dark mist. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but an inexplicable pull urged me forward, as if the light held some secret I had overlooked. The laughter faded into whispers, leaving only echoes of their taunts behind. I hesitated for a moment, torn between fear and a compulsion to discover where this path led. As I stepped into the light, the world around me transformed. The shadows dissolved, replaced by a soft glow that enveloped me like a warm blanket. I was no longer in that distorted party room. Instead, I stood in what looked like a park, vibrant with color, filled with laughter and music, exactly how I had imagined a balanced celebration could be. A group of children played nearby, but they were different. No masks, no chaotic energy, just kids smiling and enjoying their day. I blinked in disbelief. Had the festival finally shifted back to a reality I could understand? I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Maybe I had escaped. But as I turned, hoping to find the exit to the darkness behind me, my heart dropped. A familiar figure stood watching from the edge of the park. The girl with the bright eyes. She was no longer grinning. Her expression was calm but watchful. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as she approached. "You're back," she stated, almost as if it was a matter of fact. "Did you think you could leave without facing the truth?" "What truth?" I questioned, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you want from me?" Her gaze softened for a moment, then hardened again. "You didn't remember, but now you do.
How could you forget the joy? She gestured back toward the playground, the laughter echoing, leaning on the edges of my very own memories. You left all of this behind. We missed you. I didn't leave my choice, I shot back, feeling the weight of her words sink deep. But the time has come to decide once more. Will you choose to embrace it? Before I could respond, the world flickered again, the vibrancy fading into a dull haze. The clock continued its relentless ticking somewhere in the distance, a reminder that time was running out. I felt an overwhelming sense of dread and longing. Was this a real choice, or another trap? Please, just tell me what happens next, I begged, scrambling for clarity. Will I be safe? She leaned closer, voice low and earnest.
You can't escape the past, but you can learn from it. Join us, and the party will always be your home. But as the laughter around me grew and the lights began to dim again, a cold wave of uncertainty gripped me. Would hugging the past offer protection, or would I be trapped in the same cycle of playtime jubilation, with an edge of terror lurking just beneath the surface? Would I ever understand where the line was drawn between joy and despair? As if answering my thoughts, her eyes glimmered mischievously. Choose wisely, because some roads can't be untraveled, she warned, and with that, shadows began to creep back into reality. This time, they merged with the laughter, the sounds intertwined like a deceptive lullaby. I stood frozen as I tried to comprehend the weight of her words, to remain here, to learn how to navigate the darkness while holding on to the light. But could I really amalgamate these two vastly different worlds? Just then, in a flash, the scene transformed again. The laughter turned into a cacophony of menacing whispers. I found myself back in the yard of my house, the party figures hovering at the fence, waiting, an eager audience drawn to my next move. I shivered in realization. Whatever this was, it hadn't ended. I had escaped one trap, only to find myself trapped in another. With some questions still unanswered, I took a deep breath, preparing to step forward into whatever decision lay ahead. The weight of the past tugged at me as much as the shadows at my back. But no matter the choice I made, I felt that flicker of hope held firm within me. Some things may forever remain ambiguous, but I would choose to find my way through, carry the light of understanding with me, wherever it leads.